about saving lives, about giving hope to people in need. It's about me, it's about you, it's about the blood, sweat and tears and the final breakthrough. It takes guts, depending on you. People are depending on you. People are depending on you. People are depending on you.
Well, obviously the initial feelings was that of wanting to be able to make a difference, to go and assist to the folks that were affected in this catastrophic event. And it was a pre-arranged and pre-assigned mission by Rescue South Africa in conjunction with ER24 that we managed to get our ducks in a row and subsequently deploy.
Just wanted to get involved.
Oh, well, I think I'm very fortunate. I have a very understanding and family in terms of them having a similar feelings and thought processes in terms of rendering humanitarian services. So that was one of the major advantages which makes it a lot easier in terms of deployment to areas of need.
Having wives in the same industry makes it a lot more understanding, and my wife actually encouraged me to get involved. But it's for the kids that just come back safely, and that was it.
I think the information that we received prior to deployment and prior going to the mission from the Japanese ambassador within South Africa and his first secretary gave us a good briefing and an overview in terms of the potential challenges that could be faced, as well as with the threat of the nuclear situation that was developing at that time, as well as a lot of the shortfalls. And we were well briefed, as well as the rescue mission prepped accordingly, and we were ready pretty much for any difficult time that we would be presented with.
And prior to us getting to the airport, with the 3 days of the planning and preparation, the whole thing was carefully monitored.
Yeah.
Online, on news, via the embassies, everything was monitored and prepared.
Constant updates.
The TV shows you a very small section, and when you arrive for the first day in the area that you're going to start searching, and you're looking at what was an entire city, where there's very few things higher than waist height. From TV you just saw tiny little grabs and frames, but I don't think it prepared us in any way for what we saw when we got there.
The devastation was far greater than what one would have ever imagined. I think being there gave a completely different perspective. The media clippets, I think, just gave you an idea of what had transpired and taken place. But in all my years of service, I have never seen such catastrophic destruction in terms of what Mother Nature can do. Yeah, I think it was a big shock. Initially, it was one of those scenarios. Okay, where do we start? However, we had a good plan of action in terms of what our roles were going to be. And with regards to dealing with it, I think fortunately a lot of us are well experienced, and as a result of a lot of the training received over many, many years, I think made a big, strong contribution in terms of our actions forward.
So seeing it's a shock, but knowing that you're there to do something, and starting at a point helped a lot as well. And for many of us, speaking in the teams and stuff, it was difficult initially to comprehend. How do we go home and describe this? And some people left not knowing, but like Pete said, having the training, having experience, and just knowing that you're there to do something, having a point to start actually made it a lot easier to cope with.
Okay, when we arrived, obviously we had to get briefed. We were well received by the Japanese embassy, which was in Japan, and they gave us a brief that would be assigned to the military and police forces, where they would have briefings and whatever their specific request would be, they would task us appropriately. So we fell under theirs, under their control, and the missions that we were given were all very, very valuable missions, and they entrusted us completely with areas that were heavily impacted, and we took it on with a big challenge, and we did well.
This just goes back to how incredibly well organized the Japanese are. Every single area that we went to, they had to go on ahead, whether it be the military or the police, and they cleared roads. We had quantum vehicles and little trucks that we used for transport, and wherever we went, although there were areas to be searched, the access roads to those areas had been cleared by the military and the police.
Yeah, it was quite phenomenal. They had issued us with the Prime Minister's National Seal, which is a seal that gives you full access and grant to anything within the country in the time of disaster. So it was amazing. So their support and their real willingness to really allow us to make a difference was phenomenal. Sure.
In a very cold camp.
Very, very cold camp. It was out in an area which was used as it's a big stadium, and the area was actually being utilized for the return of mortal remains from different sites, as well as a main big holding area for the deceased. And it was an identification center that the Japanese used, where the folks could actually identify their lost ones. We were on an adjacent field, which was a big top sand asphalt field, where all the rescue teams that were operating in that area staged, and from that point were coordinated by the police and deployed from there. It was cold. We stayed in a tented camp, bearing up with temperatures below -9, excluding wind chill factor. So yeah, it was challenging.
No,
Ice,
definitely was.
Snow every day.
We arrived on the first day, and it had rained, and the entire field was a sheet of ice. The guys are having to use a 14-pound hammer to knock 10 pegs in. So it was cold, it was a hard floor, but we still managed to sleep.
No, it was interesting. We had a few folks that were with us. Initially we had the Mongolian folk, the rescue team that was there. They were there for 2 days, and then they departed. We had the Turkish team, where we had made contact with them, and we could obviously communicate via a lot of the translators that were provided by the Japanese embassy and the South African embassy. And some of the guys had associated with previous rescue attempts when they had it in Turkey many, many years ago. And we did develop a bit of a rapport, and obviously exchanging on all sorts of different ideas and challenges. Of which some of the challenges were the difficulty in accessing certain areas where the debris had really been packed up. The weather was definitely one of the considerations. And just general discussions and chit-chat about what they do for evacuation plans whilst working in operational areas and so on. So it was pretty good.
Yeah, also got to interact a bit with a lot of the Japanese fire departments that had been from all over Japan that had been sent to that area. They were camped there as well.
Yeah, the locals I think were absolutely phenomenal. You know, they're very private people, they're very disciplined and very motivated folks. And I think they're very private. But when they heard that we were from South Africa and that we were there with the rescue mission, they sort of opened up, and they would come from all different angles and all different areas, young, old, didn't matter what they were, and they would come up and they would be so honourable in terms of their complete, true, sincere gratitude, and thanking us, and they really appreciated all our efforts, and they were just completely amazed that we come so far to render a service to the people in need in Japan, which was something else.
You can't explain adequately what a strong and sort of upright people they are. And our rescue leader, my squad leader, was approached by a family who were poking through the rubble of what used to be the house, and they wanted to give him sweets and food. These people have lost everything, but their gratitude was such that, and their respect was such that they felt that you're there to help, so they are going to give you something. And they wouldn't take no for an answer. And they had a couple of sweets in their pockets, and they gave this to our squad leader. And just the absolute gratitude of people walking up to us in the street saying, looking at a uniform, you rescue South Africa from South Africa? And say yes. And they just won't stop shaking your hand and bowing and thanking you. They're incredible people.
Yeah, it was definitely a very, very warm welcome and a warm acceptance. I think cautious more than afraid. I think we had good systems in place. There were numerous aftershocks that took place whilst we were there, and at every operational mission site that we went to, we developed an evacuation plan, because obviously the threat was predominantly the tsunamis post aftershocks. So we had action plans in place at all times. So that created it for a lot more of a comfortable working environment. But I didn't feel threatened in any way at any time.
I think that the only time I ever had a moment of oops was I was standing on the sea wall looking into these destroyed boats, and they came over the radio and said there's a tsunami warning. The scramble back to the vehicles was quite hectic, but it was lessons learned, so that was about it. Otherwise, everything was very well planned. Evacuation was laid out, marked out every single time. If we moved 100 meters, we re-evaluated evacuation plans. So no sort of real fear of being there at all.
Sure.
I think for me, the lows was that morning of -9. That to me was the bits. Sore feet, sore hands, sore nose, just unable to get warm for a lot of the time was probably the lowest of the low. And the highs probably had to be interacting with the people. And we went there not knowing the majority of the people in the team. It was a very new team, and awesome interaction with the people. Definitely our high was to meet people that were there for a similar reason, and just to actually get on with them very, very well.
Yeah, most definitely. I think the interaction with people, and knowing that we could make a contribution that they could appreciate and value, I think that was very special. Lows, knowing that they've got a hard, tough journey, I think, I felt it for them almost, that they've got a long journey all the way, in terms of starting from scratch, from homes, and it was from all ages, young, old, which is going to be a tough, tough challenge for them, but knowing the Japanese, they will definitely be strong and come out at the top, but it's going to be tough. Now, I'd like to go back in about a year's time to see the progress. I'd like to go back to the areas that have been affected personally. I think on a visit more than a mission type scenario, but yes, to see what's happened and to see how they've actually grown and developed. And
one of the police chiefs in one area that we searched said to us, you see the village has been destroyed, come back in 2 years and you'll see how beautiful it actually is.
Yeah.
Which also just spoke to how strong they are and how focused on getting through this thing.
Yeah,